How old are you? 39, right?
Well, it's not nice when they play a song the same age you are, just to mock you as you come out.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, for those of you that don't know us, I'm Craig Langhans, the lead pastor here at Maryview Chapel. This is my wonderful wife, Cindy, gorgeous woman that she is, and also our children's pastor. She loves kids and does a fantastic job. Also the mother of our kids and the grandmother to our grandchildren. A wonderful individual that I've been privileged to spend my adult life with.
Getting old and blind.
Yes.
That pays off.
Well.
Just pays off, let me say.
Exactly. So welcome to week number 5 in our series From This Day Forward. And I want to emphasize the title. The title is that title for a reason. We want you to focus on what's ahead, not what's behind. I want you to focus on the windshield of your life and not the rear view mirror. And so if anything you've heard in any of the prior weeks or you hear today or next week when we conclude the series, if it has the tendency to cause you to go down that pathway of regret and starting to feel guilty and the shoulda, woulda, couldas and all that, just stop dead in your tracks, because that is not the intention of anything that we're doing in this series. We're focusing on today and where we go from here. And all of us have a past. All of us have mistakes and failures in our past. And when it comes to marriage, we all have a story, or we know people with a story. Certainly we've dealt with our share of successes and failures in our relationship and in our families. You have divorce on your side of the family with your one brother. I have it with my parents and my one brother. And we've walked with a lot of people. So we don't want anybody to feel in any way bad about things that we're talking about today or any of the other days in this series. We want to encourage you, help you from this day forward.
Plus, any relationship you can apply this to, whether when you're single, to marriage, to your best friend, to your parents, maybe your siblings. So this is all about how to take care of a relationship.
Yeah, there's the vast majority of everything we're going to share today, and a lot of what we've been sharing in this series applies to all kinds of relationships. So if you're single and you're thinking, this isn't really for me, absolutely it is for you, because a lot of what we'll talk about today actually applies to relationships across the board. And also when the people who are married in your life, maybe you're single and you have no aspiration to be married. Maybe you've been married, maybe you're widowed. I don't know your story, but even if you don't plan to be married ever again, your life and the lives of all of us are better when the married people in our lives have successful relationships. I know that when family members and friends have ended up going through a difficult time and it resulted in divorce, it had an impact on not only me, but everybody else in their life. So be a champion, even as a single person, be a champion of other people's marriages, be an encourager and one of their biggest fans. So we've been in this series talking about this idea in keeping with going forward from today. Today is your present. It will soon be your past. It will show up in your future. So we've just been reminding ourselves that the decisions and the attitudes and the choices that we make today very quickly are a part of yesterday, but they're seeds, and those seeds that get sown do in fact show up later on. And we're able to speak to that after 44 years of marriage now this past month. A lot of the choices that we made years and years ago did show up again, or are continuing to show up even in the present part of our relationship season that we're in right now.
Oh, and there's always new stuff.
And we're continually every day sowing new seeds. That's right. Yeah. So today we're tasked with the subject of for better or for worse. That's the title of today's message, taken from the very traditional wedding vows. And in regard to weddings and people getting married, most of the time, the two people that are going to get married are focusing on only the better. Hey, when we're married, this will be better, that'll be better, this will be fun, that'll be enjoyable, this will be rewarding, that's going to make me happy, this will be joyous. We're not focused on anything negative, or we probably wouldn't be getting married.
Yeah, and most girls, I didn't because I was raised between two boys, but most girls will, with their sister or whatever, plan weddings, or play wedding stuff. My brothers weren't cooperative to play wedding stuff.
They didn't want to dress up.
I had to play Army.
Yeah.
And so, and they, some people, maybe some of you scrapbooked and figured out and thought about it and knew people how you wanted your dress and all that kind of stuff. It was probably good that it wasn't that way because we got married like in 3 days and it was just, it wasn't a big fancy wedding, but you have this idea that, he's going to love the flowered couch that I want to buy. And he's like, no, I don't want that couch. That's ugly. How could you think that's ugly? It's gorgeous. And so you're going to have all those kind of things that they didn't think of. They just come and talk to us like, I'm just so in love. It's so wonderful. Thinking, yeah, but how does he squeeze the toothpaste tube? Does he put the lid down? Does he chew with his mouth open? Those kind of things that come up later.
Does he pick his nose in public?
Yes. Does he think he's so funny all the time and he's not?
I am funny. Come on.
So they just think about the for better, which is probably a good thing because then you'd never get married if you just thought about the for worse.
Yeah. But in fact, the wedding vows say for better or for worse. And so what we're going to try and do today is to help you, encourage you, equip you, provide you some tools that'll maybe help you minimize the for worse times, have fewer of them, get through them better, more constructively and in a healthier way so that you come out the other side actually better off as a result. And hopefully with these tools and encouragement, you'll be able to keep those times shorter. So fewer of them, shorter ones, and hopefully come through them more effectively. That's been our experience. We have had our share of ups and downs, and our rough times have become less frequent, and they don't last as long, and we deal with them better after over 4 decades than we did in the early years. There were some pretty touch-and-go times in those early years. Now, as we're talking about relationships, I just wanted at the outset dispel a couple of myths that I think are just a few of several myths that you could list out. Maybe you have a thought of your own, but here's one of them. Here's a myth. Nobody else has it as hard as I do. When you're going through that season of for worse, it's like, nobody told me to be like this. The tendency is to feel alone and isolated and like nobody else is going through this. It's like, this sucks. This is horrible. I didn't sign up for this. I don't want this. I can't imagine, I don't know what I'm going to do, and that desperation sets in.
When we first got married, we moved from San Diego area all the way up to Portland for Craig to go to school. And I used to think, nobody has it this bad. These people in Portland are weird. Because I grew up beach town, easygoing, and these people wore Birkenstocks and were different. And I had long hair, looked like a hippie, and they were like real straight. And I was thinking, nobody has it this hard, and I'm married, and it's hard.
Well, and on top of that, you were 1,000 miles away from your mother and all your friends. And so, you felt pretty isolated and alone.
Nobody had it as hard as I did.
Now, some people say, well, I don't think I'm the only one. But then that leads us to another myth, and that is that when it gets this hard for others, that's when they quit. And so I'm at that place that others have gotten to, and they quit, so I should quit. And not everybody, when it gets that hard, actually quits. You know how refreshing it can be sometimes when you hear about somebody else's struggle and they start opening up and talking about like, we were kind of at that place and we were like, maybe ready to part ways and throw in the towel, be done. And then we, came back from the precipice and you hear it and you think, I'm not the only one, right? In fact, the things that you go through in any relationship, close friendship, marriage, or any other relationship, are shared by everybody else in the room. I mean, let's just be real and honest. We have a gloss that we put over our perception of other people's relationships, like, gosh, I wish I had their marriage, or I wish I had that kind of a friendship, or I wish I had their job, or their money, or whatever it is, we think, it must be great to be them. But in fact, those people that are in that relationship or that circumstance, are just like you and me and deal with the same things you and I do.
Exactly. And my mother always told me, don't get mad and come home, because sooner or later you're going to kiss and make up, and then I'm going to be mad because if you hurt your feelings or whatever. But later in the years, I think she always sided with Craig. I don't know what that was.
That's because your mom was wise.
Uh-huh.
And she knew,
I don't know what
she
that
knew
was.
who was right and wanted to align herself.
Yeah.
No. All right. So here's one more. And again, you can add to this list, but here's one more myth. The goal of being married is my happiness. The goal of being married is my happiness. Now, some of you are like,
Well,
wait
that's
a
what
minute.
I thought.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I was, 19 when we got married?
Yeah, a lot of times people go into marriage thinking, okay, this is going to make me happy, or it already makes me happy. This person they make me laugh, they make me happy. I love being around them. This is going to be good because it's going to produce a steady stream of these good feelings that I'm feeling right now. This person's going to make me happier, this relationship is. And I'm not suggesting that happiness isn't supposed to be part of the objective. I mean, when God took Adam and said, hey, it's not good for this guy to be alone, and he gave him Eve, he wanted them to be happy together. My only point is, it's not the primary objective, and it's certainly not the only objective. In fact, my happiness at least needs to be subjected to the priority of the happiness of the person I'm married to. So in my case, I should be, I'm not always, but I should be more committed to Cindy's happiness than I am to my own.
So we had a book that, if you are ever heard of Mendrith Meyer Clinic, they're kind of counselors, and it was called Happiness is a Choice. And I purchased the book and gave it to Craig.
And she laid it strategically right in my view and said, you need to read this.
Yeah.
And I looked at the title and thought, I'm not reading that. In fact, I'm going to make a choice right now. I'm going to pick the book up and whack her with it because she was aware that I was in a place at that time, struggling, not happy with myself and a lot of my life circumstances, and she didn't know how to help me or what to do to get me out of the funk I was in, and so she provided a book, which in fact turned out to be a very good book, and it really is a choice, and I later learned that.
Well, there might have been better timing. I could have given it to you better.
Yeah, well.
We did that with several books.
Yeah. Yeah, using books as a way to, accomplish your objective with the person you're in a relationship with, not a great idea.
Not always good. At least not when you're mad.
Yeah, exactly. So getting married actually serves lots of purposes. When you go through the rough times in a committed way, you're honoring and glorifying God, you're setting an example for others, you help provide a stable and secure environment for the kids and later for the grandkids, and you positively affect the lives of everyone around you, including the people that are single. So the goal of being married isn't just my personal happiness. In fact, that's a very selfish, self-absorbed approach to a very important and sacred relationship. So in an earlier message in this series, which if you missed any of them, you can check them out on our website and also through the Marywood Chapel app, and I encourage you to do so. But we touched on 1 Corinthians 13, which talks about love. And again, it talks about love in the context of personal relationships with everybody, not just unique to marriage. Although this passage is often used at weddings. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 4, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, doesn't insist on its own way, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. And then I really want to land on 7 and 8 and emphasize some things that are here. Love bears all things. That's for better or for worse. Love believes all things, hopes all things. If there's anything that we could impart to you today, it would be to give you hope for the future of your relationship. That from this day forward, it can actually be better. Maybe it's good already, but
Maybe you didn't even come in the door good.
maybe you came in the door.
Because there's always that fight to get everybody in the car on the
We've
way to
had
church.
some of our worst ones on the way to church on a Sunday
yeah.
morning. I mean, that's the
Well,
honest
usually
truth.
we used to start driving separate.
Yeah.
Because I'd bring the kids and he would have to come early.
And that way we couldn't bicker.
Then he didn't have to fight with the kids to get in the car.
Yeah. So you get married because you love one another, right? Or you have a great close friendship and you love each other. And that's why you're such close and tight friends. And if you really love the person, we're talking about choices that you make and the way you posture yourself toward that other person relationally and emotionally, then we're talking about something much more profound than just being in love and having warm, fuzzy feelings. We're talking about the choice to hang in there, to bear all things, endure all things. And then this wonderful, very pointed statement, love never fails. Well, if love never fails, then why do we end up with broken relationships? Why do friendships end? Why do marriages end up on the rocks? What's the deal? And so what we're going to do in this next few minutes that we have together with you is to try to help you and encourage you to think differently about not just your marriage relationship if you're a married person, but all of your relationships, your significant relationships with friends and family. And the focus needs to be going forward. Again, don't go down that pathway of regret and shoulda, woulda, coulda, and all that stuff that we tend to do to ourselves when we start thinking through the mistakes that we've made in the past. But keep this in mind, that when quitting is not an option, you do think differently about the relationship. When you take that off the table, then it's like, okay, we have to work this out because walking out's not an option.
Just like if you have a job and you know you have to eat and pay your rent, you sometimes keep a job just because you can't afford to walk out.
Yeah, you have a built-in incentive or a built-in
right.
motivation. So you think differently about that job.
You think differently. You get happier about it.
Right. Now, I want to go back just briefly to a text that we used in week 3 of this series when we talked about till death do us part. And it was from Matthew chapter 19 where Jesus got questioned about divorce. And he gave an answer to that. And when they responded, those that were asking him the question responded to what he had said. They said this in Matthew 19, verse 7. They said, "Then why did Moses say in the law that a man could give his wife a written notice of divorce and send her away?" And I want you to focus in on Jesus' answer. He replied, he said, "Moses permitted divorce only as a concession to your hard hearts, but it was not what God had originally planned." I've told people for years that are married that if God can have his way in both of your hearts, and it takes both, but if he can have his way in both of your hearts, there's nothing he can't do to help you get through whatever it is you're going through. The problem is when one or the other party, and worse yet, when both dig their heels in, harden their heart, it's just like start to stiff arm God. It's like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to try anymore. I don't care what God says. I don't care what you think. I'm done. You start digging your heels in. It's the beginning of the end. And that's why Jesus says, that's not what God wants. What God originally intended is something much more enjoyable. It takes hard work at times, but if you will harden your heart, if you start to dig your heels in, you're going to keep yourself from experiencing what God really had in mind and what you really had in mind when you said, "I do."
Well, and there's those times when we know with relationships that break up that sometimes you have a toxic friend that you just need not to be around anymore. They're dragging you places that you need not go. And the same with marriages. Sometimes you're unsafe in your marriage and that needs to be taken care of. Or sometimes there's just situations that are beyond your control and you need to get to a safe place, just like with friends or toxic relationships. Sometimes it has to be severed because of that.
So in our early years, when we ran into some rough times, which we, like all married couples, did frequently in those first few years as our relationship was trying to find some kind of a normal rhythm, we found ourselves ill-equipped to deal with the conflict that we were experiencing. Lots of reasons for that, partly that we were really young, never been married before, didn't get any premarital counseling, and didn't really have any good conflict resolution skills. So we were learning on the job without a whole lot of help from other people. And I've tried to encourage people, because of our experience, try to encourage people to be more prepared, because the rough times will come. So prepare for them.
You will prepare for a vacation. Like you'll do research, check the weather. We check the weather app. I've been checking the weather app for kids camp. I'm looking at it. Does it change? You'll check out routes. You'll do all this planning. But then when it comes to marriage, you're thinking, I don't want to read a book. I don't want to listen to somebody talk. I'm just annoyed. And so I'm not doing anything. We live out in the country now. And so we had to prepare, like we keep extra water in case the electricity goes off and our well shuts off. We have, wind up radio, wind-up flashlights, things like that we might need because
a generator,
things like that we might need. But when we got married, it's like, well, we just like each other. I just think he's cute. Why wouldn't I want to marry him? And we have fun together and stuff like that. And so we did not have who tells a 19, 20-year-old they don't go to class necessarily on how to cope, how to do conflict resolution. You sometimes do that in school now, but it's really not in depth. So then you're married and first of all, you gotta pack boxes up, move together. There's conflict right there, ready to roll, right there. What goes in each car, you gonna take that? He'd say, you're gonna take that? I'm like, yes, I'm gonna take that, that's mine. Why would you wanna take that? Why are you moving that? And when we were
Not
first
that you're
married.
speaking from experience or anything.
When we were moving, I was moving out of my parents' house. I'd moved home out of my apartment, and he's like, why are you putting that in the car? Because
We
it's
don't need
mine. So you got conflict immediately, or conflict with friends, or conflict with families. And so learning how to deal with conflict is really important.
And there are a lot of ways to do that. Read a book, go to a class, read some blogs on the internet, go to a conference together. Our encouragement is just to do that when you're not having a conflict so that when the rough times come, you actually have some tools. What most couples do is they wait till the conflict comes and it's like, okay, now what do we do? And they're ill-equipped to deal with what's going on. One of the things we've discovered over the years, and I was talking with a couple that's been married 20 years out in the lobby after our first gathering, and they were saying the same thing. One of the things we've discovered is that when the rough times come, like they have for us and they do for every married couple, that we have, thankfully, discovered that if we'll hang on to Jesus, work hard on the relationship, and work our way through the rough time, that on the other side, there's always a season of reward and benefit that is enjoyed. And we'll get a few years down the road and look back on the rough time and think, I am really glad that we worked it out. I am really glad we stuck it out because all the stuff that's going on now, we would have missed out on.
Right, and we know that we've had, one of our sons was injured and so spent 3 years doing medical things. We've had family members pass away. We've had family conflicts. We have 3 boys and 3 wonderful daughter-in-laws and 9 grandkids, 10th on the way. And
How exciting is that?
we have dealt with stuff as a family too because we like to be together. When you put all that many people together, you have conflict. You don't parent the same. They don't parent it like we would parent, right? That's what we always say because you don't remember how you ever parented. You don't know. You just think you know. And so we've had things that are just not necessarily where we're bickering, but outside influences that put strain on our marriage. You know, things that happen. Maybe you get in a fight with a neighbor about yards and dogs and stuff like that put stress on your marriage. So it might not be something you've caused, but an outside influence that causes that for worse.
And so the thought there is, you know, when you start off with the times that are for better and the for worse times come, don't think, oh, well, it's over or this is the end or this is how it's going to be from here on out. No, press through because some more for better times are on the other side of that rough time.
Yes.
Now, obviously, we've pushed through some rough times over the years in order to get where we are, and we talked about it, and we realized that when pressure comes, when the pressure cooker of life experiences and situations, you know, start to press in on the relationship, that those rough times can either press us closer together or push us farther apart. And so we got to talking about that. It's like, well, obviously, long-term, big picture, it's pushed us closer together. We are closer than we've ever been at this stage in our life. And that's because, not always, but overall, we have allowed the pressures to push us together rather than to tear us apart. And we thought, well, so why is that, or how has that worked? And so we're going to talk about 5 things in the time that remains that are a beginning of a longer list, I'm sure, of things that for us have worked and helped us when pressures come, when rough times come, helped us use those rough times to forge a closer, more intimate relationship rather than to let those rough times drive us apart, put a wedge, okay? So here's the first one. We do not run away.
We tried.
We did?
Well, inside. This is what happens. Sometimes things will come up, and inside you'll just start shutting down, thinking, well, I'm fine. I don't have to do and you can just deal with your own emotions and shut down, close down, and so inside you've run away.
Yeah, we're not just talking about divorce. That's addressed
Yeah.
again in the message
And
from
besides, we had
earlier.
3 kids, and nobody wanted 2.
Yeah,
We figured there's no easy divide. Who's going? I'll take the good one, whoever that was at that day,
Yeah.
at that moment.
Yeah, that varied
So
from
we
day
used
to
to make
day.
a joke. We could never get divorced because nobody wanted 2.
okay. So we do have some kids in the room.
Yes.
All right. Do you need a shovel over there? Or are you good?
No, they know we love them.
All right. So yeah, this is not just divorce is not an option. I mean, for us it's not an option and that's off the table. But this is just running away in your heart, just distancing yourself.
Shutting down.
Shutting down emotionally, distance, the silent treatment, the cold shoulder thing, that kind of stuff. When that starts going on inside and you start creating this separate life from one another, you're running away relationally, you're running away spiritually and emotionally. And we've done that at times, and it's never good.
Never pays off.
No, you become miserable, the other person's
Or they
miserable.
don't notice that you've shut down. And then you're mad because now they don't notice that you aren't your usual self.
Yeah, and who are they that you're referring to?
You know, they.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to admit to it. I'm a typical.
I'm like, did you not notice?
Clueless male. All right. So, but don't run away.
Yeah.
Not only is divorce not an option, don't run away emotionally. Come at your problems, talk about them, deal with them, confront them, conflict resolution, very
Yes.
important. But don't just run away. That's number one. Number two, we function as a team.
Yeah.
We're functioning as team members. And we've done that in marriage, but we've also done it in life. We do it as parents, we do it as grandparents, we've done it in ministry for many, many years.
You made me do it today.
I made you do it today, that's right. Twisted your arm, held a gun to your head. Thank you for your courage to be
And
up
we've
here.
watched other family members that would divide their children up and say, well, you know, Dad, he's this and this and this, and start poisoning and rallying their own team amongst the team. You know, if you played on any team sports, that is never good. That is never good to have, 3 or 4 teams within one team. And so we didn't do that to our children. We really tried hard not to have an ally within the family, so you'd always feel justified in feeling mad or irritated at the other person, saying, oh, you come be with Mom, because they're this or that. And we tried really hard not to do that and divide up our team. We were a team. It all happened within the team. And
Yeah,
that's
and,
our...
and that also applied to this relationship. It's like when we're bickering, when we're mad at each other, when,
I'm annoyed.
Cindy's annoyed because she's having to deal with me. That's my spiritual gift, annoyance sometimes. And so when those times come, it's really important how you view what's going on. It's not enjoyable. It's no fun. You don't want to keep living like this. But that person isn't the enemy. Cindy's not the enemy. I'm not the enemy. That person may be the source of irritation and annoyance at the time and maybe contributing heavily to the conflict, but they're still part of the team. And so when we see ourselves and, like you said, our kids as all on the same team and never on opposite teams, it changes how you approach what's going on and gives you a built-in incentive to work it out, because it's like, we got to go out on the field and play ball here, so to speak. All right, so number 3.
Own your own stuff. That's hard to do, to own your own stuff. I'm not always as good at it because sometimes I don't think I have stuff. And Craig is really good at helping us own our own stuff. And he's usually the first one to come and say he's sorry. And I'm thinking, oh, I was the one that probably did that. So I'll take your sorry, because then it's easy for me to say sorry. And then even though he wasn't at fault, he'll step up and say, hey, I'm sorry for that.
For my part.
For his part. And then I'm thinking, yeah, but I probably instigated and started it, so I'm really glad I'm off the hook. And then I can say I'm sorry, and it's not so hard. And so we really try to own our own stuff. And sometimes you can't see your stuff. That's the problem. You can't see that you're having issues. Or sometimes you can see yourself coming to the edge, and you're thinking, I am diving off. I am over the edge, and I'm just going to go whole hog down. And so we help each other try to see our own stuff. You can't yell it and scream it and point it out at the moment. That's never that's never helpful. But later when we talk about it, we try to help each other realize, you know, you pushed my buttons this way and I pushed your buttons, and to own our stuff. That's really important.
Yep, and even if 80 or 90% of the problem is the other person, or at least maybe you think that, or maybe it actually is, there's still that part that is yours to own, and that's the thing you need to focus on. Just own your own stuff. You can't fix the other person. You're not supposed to fix the other person. It's not your job to point out their failures or faults. You leave that to the Lord to do.
But you like to point out each other's faults so that you look better. That's what happens.
Exactly. If I put you down, it makes me feel better about me.
And you know that's never good. You don't like it when you see your children do that. Or if you are teaching somewhere or in a crowd and you see kids do that, you think, oh, that's terrible. But then you do it. So I try to catch myself, not to try to elevate myself and think, well, I'm a little bit better, I'm sure, or whatever.
All right, next one is we always forgive. Remember in 1 Corinthians, God said, this is how love works. It keeps no record of wrongs. But it goes even further than that. We're not only not keeping a list of things that the other person has done that we are having a grudge about, but we're actually truly forgiving, meaning like the Lord forgives us. In fact, he tells us that's how we should relate to all the people in our life. Forgive one another, it says. Not just husband and wife or any specific...
Or your best friend.
Yeah.
Or your mom, your dad.
The coworker or the extended family member,
your boss.
whatever it is. Yeah, forgiveness is so important because it keeps the toxicity of grudges being held toward another person, keeps that toxicity out of the relationship and allows the relationship to heal and to become what it can from this day forward. Going forward, it's important to forgive. And Cindy and I think, just because we so deeply appreciate the fact that Jesus has forgiven us as individuals, we understand that there's just no way we can hold on to unforgiveness toward one another when we've been forgiven like we have so much by the Lord.
Well, and it sounds like we think that's easy. It's not easy to forgive another person and forget and not hold them accountable. It's just hard, and it's a choice you have to make, and we have to sometimes make that choice when it's not easy. Sometimes it sounds real flippant to say, oh, we always forgive. Well, it might take days, and we have to talk about it, and we have to work through that. And the word work on it.
And don't confuse forgiveness with trust. When something has happened that requires forgiveness, very often it has also broken trust. And forgiveness is a choice on the part of the person who extends it. And forgiveness is given even if the other person doesn't deserve it, even if the other person hasn't actually owned their stuff or acknowledged that they did something wrong. That's how God forgives us. He has such generous forgiveness for us. Trust, on the other hand, is earned. And that's on the part of the other person who violated trust. That's not on your part. In other words, I don't have to trust, but I do have to forgive. Trust can be earned, and then I will give it again, but not until it's been earned. And while we're at it, again, the thing you addressed earlier, if there's abuse in the situation or some legal complication going on, maybe steps need to be taken to provide safety for one or both of the people in the marriage, or for the kids, or a combination of things. That's separate from forgiving. You can forgive somebody, but if they're abusive, you may have to take steps to protect yourself or the individuals in that relationship, but hopefully do it with a long-term view that allows you to come back and work things out and be reconciled. All right, fifth and final thing, and that is we have confidence in the commitment of Jesus to our marriage. And I hope you can make the distinction with us between that and what I didn't say, and that is confidence in our commitment to Jesus. It's not what I'm saying. Our commitment to Jesus is good some days and better others and not so good sometimes. And our commitment to him is not the strength of our relationship. It's his commitment to us. In other words, our biggest fan is Jesus. He's rooting for Craig and Cindy to make it and make it well as a married couple. And that just for us has made all the difference.
Because sometimes you have people in your life that are rooting for you to fail. And they're not excited about where you're at, or they're jealous, or they're envious, and they're just pushing on you not to do well because maybe their marriage or their relationships haven't done well. So it always gives us comfort to know, hey, there's somebody besides us who want our marriage to work, and we know our kids want our marriage to work. I know I want my friendships to work and my relationship with my extended family to work, and that I know it takes love and forgiveness and owning my own stuff and doing the things that I need to do and not holding on to old grudges where 6 years ago they did this and they're probably going to do that, and not keeping account of all those things and wrongs and throwing that in the midst of the relationship, but giving everybody the opportunity to have a fresh page, knowing that Jesus is committed to all of us having great relationships and a great marriage.
Absolutely. So we have tremendous confidence in the Lord's commitment to our marriage and our other relationships. I hope you do too. If there's anything we can encourage you with, it's that Jesus wants you to succeed, that he wants your friendships to work, he wants your marriages to work. He wants them to not just work, but to thrive. He wants you to thrive in your relationships to flourish. Now, some of you may be thinking, all right, well, that sounds great. I'm all in on that. I'll do my part. But I am in a relationship, a friendship or a marriage or with a family member where they're not wanting to. They don't have any interest. They don't want to put forth the effort. They don't care about this stuff. I do, but they don't. And so it's a pretty one-sided thing. And if that's the case, then here's what God says about you and your situation. Romans 12:18, if it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. And the key phrase there is, as far as it depends on you. All I can do is my part. And the other person has to either do their part or not. And if they do, that's great. That's what I'm hoping for and praying for. But I can't do it for them, and I can't motivate them to do it. They have to choose to do it. And if they do, that's better for everybody, but if they don't, at least I know I can sleep at night that I've done the part that was my part to do. And that's all that God expects any of us to do anyway. And then finally, let's just end with this thought. It's one that we keep coming back to and touching on during the course of this series, and that's this, that it's our challenge, it's our opportunity in life in all of our relationships, not just marriage, to be the person you are with wants to be with. So it applies to friendship, the work environment, marriage in particular. Yes, also with all of our relationships. Just put yourself in the other person's shoes. And if you were on the receiving end of what you're dishing out right now, like if you had to put up with you, I've said this many times, Cindy deserves an award for having gone through what the last 44 plus years have been about. I mean, I'm not an easy guy to be married to, and she is a trooper. And seriously, I mean, we would be divorced if it wasn't for Jesus, and we would not have had a great relationship if it wasn't for Jesus and Cindy and the things that they've done over the years. I truly give them the credit. And my point in that is that many times, even recently, I've thought to myself, well, if I was on the receiving end of what I'm dishing out to her or to this other person in this other relationship, would I like that? It's like, no, I probably wouldn't. And it provides not just insight, but the motivation to change and say, all right, I'm not going to do that. Well, I'm going to change.
If you've ever noticed, you're being intense with each other, the phone rings, the other person picks up, oh, hey, how you doing? And you're thinking, really? Really? Oh, what is that? Or somebody comes to the door, or you're in a heated thing and you show up somewhere, even at the grocery store or whatever, and they turn into a different person. I'm like, what is that? You can make that choice then. You can make it now. And so I think about that for myself. I'm like, okay, I can change if somebody calls, or if I go to the store, or I walk into a different situation, or somebody approaches me, I can lighten up and do that. Then we can make that choice to do that with the person that is closest to us, even though they give us the most grace. Because they love us, they give us the most grace. And so we need to be able to be a person, not just, oh, hi, how are you doing? But be that person for the person we're with.
Absolutely. So again, final thought, it is about from this day forward. So don't focus on anything in the past except to learn whatever lessons you can from past experiences and successes and failures. But put the focus on the windshield of your life from this day forward. How am I going to relate to the person I'm married to the friends and family members that are in my life? How am I going to make the best of the relationships from this day forward? I'm going to do it by applying these things to my life. So I want to pray for you and for the married couples in particular, but for all of us and all our relationships, and I'd invite you to join me at this time. Father, we just thank you that